Hello, humans. Welcome to Power Report with Dan from the Internet. I am Dan from the Internet, and this is a special edition. I'm recording this very late in the middle of the night on the West Coast here because we just had breaking news in the very late hours of the evening that Donald Trump's Mar-a-Lago residence was being raided by the FBI. This is huge. And I'm going to talk about some details about this, why people are speculating about what this could mean, and why I'm saying that this is a hugely consequential moment. There has never really been a situation where you have a former president who has been raided by federal agents like this. Republicans are furious, especially the Trump loving Republicans. They're furious. And the rhetoric they're using on this is really shocking. So I want to get some details about what's going on here first, and I want to get to the Republican response here because that's where I want to make my ultimate point. So, as the New York Times and a lot of others are reporting, the FBI is searching Trump's Mar-a-Lago residence in Florida. Apparently, this has to do with old records that Trump took from the White House. But yeah, of course, there's a lot to be speculating what's going on here. There's with the January 6th hearings, with all of different Donald Trump's shady dealings that we don't know that much about. There's what the Southern District in New York are investigating right now. Who's to say necessarily what the FBI could be searching, or whether it is just limited to the supposed White House documents that have been taken out of the White House without permission. But there's a lot really important on here. So it says the search, according to people familiar with the matter, appeared to be focused on material that Mr. Trump had brought with him to Mar-a-Lago when he left the White House. These boxes contain many pages of classified documents, according to a person familiar with their contents. Trump delayed returning 15 boxes of material requested by officials with the National Archive for many months, only doing so when there became a threat of action to retrieve them. The case was referred to by the Justice Department to the Justice Department by the archives earlier this year. And it came as the Justice Department has stepped up its separate inquiry into Mr. Trump's efforts to remain in office after his defeat at the polls in the 2020 election, and as the former president also faces an accelerating criminal inquiry in Georgia and civil actions in New York. So yeah, all of that goes to what I was just describing right there, which is the fact that Donald Trump is being investigated by a lot of different state civil courts and state criminal courts. And the main thing here is, look, Donald Trump made a lot of brazen attempts against the American democracy. And I have no love for the American democracy and how it doesn't work for regular working class people, but it does technically stand between us and full outright oligarchy and power by the ultra wealthy, the people that Donald Trump really truly wants to represent. Donald Trump claims to be a populist or a man of the people, but he really only wants to represent power, and specifically power for the people who grant him power, which is the Republican Party. And that's why he did this whole thing about, stopping the steal to make sure that the election results, and try to cast down the election results, saying that they were rigged, that they need to stop counting votes over there and continue counting votes over there. That entire mess. In addition to, again, all the shady dealings that we talked about here, we have civil actions in New York, criminal inquiry in Georgia, and the January 6th hearings. This is all in the backdrop against that. But the Republican Party, which tends to be, very, we care about law and order. Donald Trump himself, who said that the Department of Justice needs to, I'm paraphrasing here, but they need to really come down and rule with an iron fist when it comes to Black Lives Matter protesters, people who are protesting the Muslim ban, people who are protesting the wall, any number of Donald Trump's insanely xenophobic policies. Trump wanted the Justice Department to respond with throwing the book at them legally and with violent force, physically. We saw that on numerous occasions when he had protesters cleared out and tear gas thrown so that he could pose with a Bible in front of a church. This fascist symbolism all the way. But that is to get here, this paragraph I'm setting up here is to say, Trump has long cast the FBI as a tool of Democrats who have been out to get him, and the search set off a furious reaction among his supporters in the Republican Party and on the far right of American politics. Kevin McCarthy of California, the Republican leader in the House, suggested that he intended to investigate Attorney General Merrick Garland if Republicans took control in November. And so the politicization of the Department of Justice was a long time coming, but it has definitely begun tonight and will. Listen, Republicans will not forget this. They will hold on this grudge. And if Republicans take the House in November, as they are widely expected to do, even though there are some wide optimistic signs for Democrats, and I'll talk about that more in a future installment of Power Report. If you're watching this live as it comes out, we'll be talking about it again this week. But assuming that the Democrats don't keep the House, and let's not even talk about the Senate right now, what you're going to get is a situation where the Republicans are going to be emboldened by the fact that their president, their God King, was forced to deal with, a little bit of accountability and a little bit of scrutiny for what appears to be, at the very least enough to warrant federal investigations, but, at maximum, like what we all see with our lying eyes are attempts to break the law at the highest degree on the part of the elected president of the United States, the former elected president of the United States, Donald Trump. And so, yes, the reaction, the top line reaction from Donald Trump and a lot of Republicans is insane, but I want to get you a little bit inside to what's happening on the right. So Ben Collins, one underscore on Twitter, does a lot of looking into what's happening on the right wing, and he was looking at a Reddit post on the Donald, essentially, that version of the Donald, since it's banned from Reddit, in reaction to the Mar-a-Lago raid, and totally normal things. People saying stuff like lock and load. Are we not in a civil war, a cold civil war at this point? They cry out pain as they strike you, which is in reference to an anti-Semitic line that the Nazis used against the Jews in World War II. And then someone replies to that, they'll cry out an authentic pain soon enough. Nice. Good. These are all things that you definitely want to be happening in a society. And of course, Dan, you're saying, oh, these are Reddit posts. These are just what people are saying online. You don't need to be taking this seriously. Well, what we should be taking seriously are some of the most prominent pundits on the right wing, because this is where people will be taking their cues. The reason why I'm doing this right now is because folks like Steven Crowder said, or they tweeted, "Tomorrow's war, sleep well." People are taking this, with a grain of salt, like, shout out to Dan Arrow saying, "I'm so ready, Steven. Cannot wait for you to finally take the gloves off and go to war." Parentheses, whining on YouTube. And, Steven Crowder is like, not the biggest threat here. He can barely debate people for his opinions. He has this whole, like, change my mind stick, but he will barely even debate people who actually hold a chance of debating against him and changing the minds of his audience. But you have someone like Charlie Kirk, who has just been on one for a while now. And I just want to go through this tweet thread right now, because all of his tweets, like, right now, all day, have been ridiculous since this happened. One where it says, "The FBI just completed an unannounced raid of President Trump's home at Mar-a-Lago. America is devolving into a third world nation, and this is the latest escalation by Merrick Garland. The Biden regime should shock every single American, regardless of who you voted for in 2020. Wow." Couple points. There's just one funny little problem, is that the current director of the FBI, Christopher Wray, was appointed by Donald Trump. So while you're saying this is a deep state conspiracy where, people, Dark Brandon and the Democrats are working to hold Donald Trump accountable, listen, I don't think the Democrats are doing enough to hold Donald Trump accountable, and I'm not even sure that it exists either the wherewithal within the Constitution or the wherewithal within the Republican Party or the wherewithal within the Democratic Party to actually do what it takes to make sure that Donald Trump cannot attempt to subvert the elections, free and fair elections, or our democracy again, and also that other members of the Republican Party are deterred from trying to do that in the future. To be clear, I don't believe that Democrats are making that strong of an effort in that regard. Nevertheless, Republicans are saying that it's a big old conspiracy that Democrats are doing this, even though Republicans are top to bottom in charge of the Department of Justice, and Republicans are top to bottom in charge of the police. Nevertheless, also that thing about like third world democracies and things like that. I want to see if I can get the tweet up, but yeah, here we go. Since 2009, Israel has indicted sitting prime minister. France has prosecuted and convicted 2 former presidents. South Korea has prosecuted and convicted and imprisoned 2 of its former presidents. All were on corruption and charges. It's not unheard of among democracies. A functioning democracy holds to account its most powerful to make sure that they can't abuse their power. That's a very important thing. Functioning democracies hold their most powerful people accountable so that they cannot abuse power. So you cannot create a system where power can be abused by one leader or by a leader's friends or their family or their following, because that's how you get a dictatorship. That's how you get the even more naked concentration of power than what capitalism already creates for people. But we should be alarmed here. This isn't just the usual kind of like Republicans firing all cylinders, having a fit. Like we said, things that Charlie Kirk's saying right now. Charlie Kirk, leads Turning Points USA, which is that has a finger on the pulse of a lot of Republican college campus youth activism, but also just held major events that are very influential for Republican thinking. You know, like they have a media apparatus to where they come up with a messaging, they come up with a talking point, and everyone spews it out afterwards. And Charlie Kirk is through his bootlicking during the Trump administration, had gotten himself into a good position to show that he could do a lot of that. So now he's saying things like, the raid should put into perspective exactly what the regime, in capital letters, plans to do with their 87,000 new IRS agents. No, that doesn't make it clear. You're saying, okay, so there are new IRS tax agents, presumably to deal with the fact that the IRS is understaffed and underfunded and can't handle, making sure people get revenues into this country, let alone all of the tax dodging that's done by the very, very wealthy in this country. There isn't enough resources for the IRS to do that. That's a nice little head fake there Charlie Kirk is doing there. But this raid is not for everyday people. It's not for, Donald Trump is, the implication here is that Donald Trump is an innocent freedom fighter. The implication here is that Donald Trump didn't lie about the vote. The implication here is that the false reality that Donald Trump has tried building, arguably since 2016, but definitely from the 2020 election and beyond, is not a false reality, that it's real, and that there are these forces like Joe Biden and, regular people who identify as Democrats and people who don't identify as Democrats, and everyone else is just like coming to get right-wingers. It's this paranoid soup that is constantly fed to Republicans that is the danger here. Because when I go back to tweets like this from Ben _ showing that the actual people who are most extreme on this are ready to call up arms and get ready. When Charlie Kirk tweets things like the final phase has begun, or when people like Steven Crowder say, tomorrow we fight, this increasing of rhetoric is going to lead somewhere. You have people heading off the FBI, crowding at Mar-a-Lago right now. As I play this video here, ready to support Trump because they feel like they need to defend Trump. You have people online saying, Trump, just give us the word. Let's go. Let's start this. You know what they want to start? They want to start a civil war where they get to claim power of the country forever. You think that's hyperbole? Do you think I'm being ridiculous? Out of the past 4 years, do you think I'm jumping the gun here. I again think not. Here's some more views of a crowd that continues to go into the night after Mar-a-Lago is raided. This is a cult. This is Trump's cult here. And this is the America that we live in. Because we have to deal and work with cult leaders. And a lot of people are buying into the propaganda. Fox News is already saying things like the government is corrupt, the raid is insane and it's reckless, and the FBI is using police scare tactics. Note they weren't saying this at any time during the Black Lives Matter movements last year, but they're saying it now during Trump police tactics. Listen, at the end of it, I think the serfs made a really good point in that the right went from saying Biden is a barely sentient old man to a Machiavellian mastermind capable of making a Trump-appointed Federal Society FBI director who served under Bush to take down his future political opponent in a single day. So yeah, there's always this game that Republicans like to play with Democrats during the Trump administration. Is Trump a bumbling idiot, or is he cautious and capable and methodical? And the answer is, a little bit of both. Trump knows how to bend the boundaries to get what he wants. And it's a system that has allowed him to do what he wants to with that. But on the flip side, this is bigger, even though the right is in denial. This is bigger than, Joe Biden using the FBI to get one over Donald Trump. No. Donald Trump really messed up here. Donald Trump really overplayed his hand. And Republicans who have chased him to the ends of the earth think that they can get some political support and votes out of that are finding that their bet is coming closer and closer to the wire than they thought. And if Donald Trump gets convicted of something or gets publicly put in more scrutiny and more trouble to where he is no longer that leader of the party that can be accepted, he gets turned into a martyr, but that martyr hopefully doesn't become fuel for a right-wing base that is ready to attack violently. That could be really promising for Democrats. That could mean there's a power vacuum on the right, and that Donald Trump has been shown to be feckless and weak, and that he isn't above the law. Of course, we'd love to believe this. I would love to believe this. But it takes that accountability to happen first. And right now, I'm fortunately not seeing it. But I hope this is a turn. I hope that the FBI is collecting data, the collecting evidence, and that the appropriate courts involved build their cases, and that they do it soon before Trump is able to run again. There is one more thing I will show you because this could be an important thing, or it may not be an important thing. But this was floating around a lot, and it could be wishful thinking, but there's generally a part of the U.S. code that says, this is pointed out by Mark E. Elias, saying that basically if you destroy records or destroy documents, that disqualifies you from holding office in the United States. It would be difficult. It would be very much of a lift to, hold the president accountable for anything, as we've seen over the past couple of years, but especially to do this soon for Trump under these circumstances. But it's on the books that the thing that the FBI is allegedly saying that Trump did and is responsible for could disqualify him from being president, which would solve a lot of our problems, but depending on how Trump's cult reacts to it, could create a whole new set of problems. So, like I always said, politics was going to get very interesting before the midterms. That moment has happened. It was happening with Roe v. Wade. It was happening on a bunch of other different things, but the gauntlet has been thrown This is an early October surprise, to be honest, and I'm very curious to see how this develops. Everything else, make sure you keep it locked to Power Report for all of the coverage on that. We will be keeping on this.